before they're picking. Well, here we are, the inner ward of the Tower of London, and in front of you, it's the largest and oldest of all our towers. But behind you, Tower Green. That is the old execution site. Now, we go back to this building here. Work began on this site in 1078 under the direction of a monk called Gundulph of Beck, and it took 20 years! It took 20 years to complete. The windows were later added by Sir Christopher Wren in the 17th century. On each corner there is a turret, and at the top of the turrets you'll see golden crowns, beneath them weather vanes showing the royal standard. This signifies that this is still a royal palace, though no longer a royal residence. However, kings and queens lived up there for over 500 years. The last monarch to do so was James I in 1603. Now the royal family lived mainly on the top floor. On the floor below was the banqueting hall, the council chamber, accommodation for knights and their ladies, and the chapel royal of St. John the Evangelist, probably the best preserved Norman chapel in this country, and where all our kings and queens have worshipped. The ground floor was mainly for the servants and the cooks, but there is another floor. It's below ground level. There are no windows, so it's very dark, and being so close to the river, it's extremely damp. This makes it an ideal location to put a wine cellar. Quite right though, we did put prisoners down there, we did torture people down there, it was a dungeon. In fact, the first prisoner we ever held here was a French bishop called Flambard. The way anyone would think it's a good idea to lock a Frenchman in a wine cellar is beyond me. A dark place, dark and stinky, but nowadays it's not. Nowadays it's light and it's fragrant. When you go down there nowadays, it's not a prison or a dungeon or a torture chamber, it's a gift shop. When you see those prices, you too will scream. Now our story would not be complete without telling you about the ravens, and there are some cages down there. The 3 ravens are down there, the other ravens are out playing, and the ravens have been around the tower for many years. It's the very superstitious King Charles II decreed that we should keep an establishment of 6 ravens, as he firmly believed the legend that if the 6 ravens ever left the Tower of London, the White Tower would crumble to dust, the monarchy would fall, and a terrible disaster would befall the country. Well, it's the 21st century, for goodness sakes. We don't believe in that mumbo-jumbo superstitious rubbish. Leave 8! With a further 3 on standby somewhere else. Now ravens live to about 12 years old in the wild, but here they live a lot longer. In fact, we had one that lived to be 44 years old. Wow. Now they're looked after by a team of my colleagues, but please be careful with these animals. They're not particularly tame, and those beaks are designed to rip flesh from bone. If you look over there, you can see a large black and white Tudor building called the Queen's House. It dates from 1540 and is the best preserved Tudor building in the City of London. It is now the home of the Constable of the Tower of London. And being the home of such a high-ranking official, it has sometimes been used to accommodate some very important prisoners. Prior to her execution in 1542, Queen Catherine Howard spent time in there. A man called William Penn spent 8 months on the top floor for his offensive and controversial writings. He was only released on the condition that he left the country, which he did, crossed the Atlantic, and founded the Quaker colonies of Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. Anyone here from there?
Pennsylvania.
No? You are, sir. You must be very proud.
Thank you.
Your founding father was a criminal. That bell we gave you, sir, was founded just 500 yards on the other side of that glass building, and that bell, when we gave it to you, sir, was in one piece. And you lot broke it. Like you did our language. Pronounced aluminium, by the way. That's the Beauchamp Tower, and in there you'll find 91 inscriptions carved into the walls by the prisoners. Some of those carvings are over 500 years old. Behind me, over here, you can see a large building with a golden clock face, and that is where the crown jewels and royal regalia is. So when you leave me, I would suggest you join that queue, which currently is around about an hour. If you don't want to queue for an hour, come back at 5 o'clock, there won't be a queue there at all. That's the Chapel Royal, we'll be going in there very shortly, but let's return our attention to the scaffold site over there, where the three queens, amongst others, were to die. Now the first victim in 1536 was Queen Anne Boleyn. She was found guilty of adultery and incest, but I think she was only guilty of one thing, and that was that she hadn't provided the king with a son and heir despite her promises. And now she's 35 years old and she's having miscarriages. She's also an obstacle to a treaty with other countries, but while she lives, those kings of other countries will not sign a treaty with England because they are related to Queen Catherine of Aragon, or they are Roman Catholic. She must be removed. She's absolutely terrified at the prospect of dying an agonising death at the hands of a clumsy axeman, and she requested that she be executed in the French style with a two-handed sword. This was granted by the king, and a French master swordsman was sent for from Calais. Imagine the scene on the day of an execution. Thousands of little blood-stained, horrible peasants would have gathered over there and would have rubbed shoulders with nobility. They'd be watching her. She'd be on her knees with her head bowed in prayer. The executioner stood behind her. When he thought the time was right, he very quietly went down and he pulled a sword out of a sack hidden beneath the straw. He held it in readiness above Queen Anne, and then surprisingly he shouted, "Bring me my sword!" This startled Anne in such a way that she looked up, at which point he smote her head from her body with one quick clean strike. Now the head and the body were placed together in an elm coffin, taken into the chapel and buried beneath the wall. You're going to see that spot very soon. 5 years passed. The next victim was to be King Henry VIII's own auntie, Margaret Pole. She had done absolutely nothing wrong. All that she had done was have a son who'd grown up to be Cardinal Reginald Pole, and he was going around Europe causing problems for the king. So as the king can't punish the son, he decides to punish the mother instead. But that proud old lady refused to place her neck on the block. She said, "That's for traitors. I'm not a traitor." Then she took her chance and jumped off the scaffold and ran down towards the bloody tower. The executioner and his assistants ran on after her, and when they caught up with her, they held her down while the executioner hacked her to pieces. 27 blows to kill a 67-year-old lady. Within a year, the axe was to fall again twice on the same day. This time on the pretty young neck of Queen Catherine Howard and her lady-in-waiting, Jane Boleyn. Now, Queen Catherine did not want to make the same mistake as Queen Anne. She tried really hard to have a baby. Really, really hard. Not necessarily with the king, but he was definitely trying hard. However, she didn't have a baby. She had a lot of affairs, and it was the one with Thomas Culpeper that would be her undoing. She's reported to have said, from her scaffold site, "Today I stand before you, the Queen of England, but I would much rather be the wife and lover of the only man I truly love, Master Thomas Culpeper." She probably shouldn't have said that. Thomas Culpeper certainly thought so. He was at the back like this. Jane Boleyn was Anne Boleyn's sister-in-law, and she was executed within 1 hour of her queen, and her crime was not telling the king of her mistress's liaison. Now the last queen to die over there is Lady Jane Grey, but I'm going to tell you that story in the chapel. So as we're going into a place of Christian worship, gentlemen, please remove your hat or cap if your religion permits you to do so. And also now's the time to turn off your cameras and any video, phones or anything like that. Please don't take any pictures inside the chapel.